أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. And that is to proceed. Very the best of talks beyond any doubt is the book of Allah, and the best of guidance is the guidance of His Messenger Muhammad. May peace and blessings be upon him. And very the most evil of all matters are the ones innovated, for every newly innovated matter is an innovation, and every innovation is a misguidance, and every misguidance will lead to the hellfire. Indeed, I need to make the following statement before I start, that I was so happy and thrilled when I heard the brothers, the Shaykh, which is the Imam, and the other person, who had decided to teach a book rather than to give scattered lectures. For the lectures they have the benefit, but the book, through my experience, has more an effect. And it was more happy for me as well to see that the brothers had asked me and requested that if I can teach the book of Sifat al-Salah, which I have taught it more than 5 times. One of them, the start of it, back in the history, we're talking about now in date-wise, back in the 1992, and I'm sorry here to say using the Christian year, because if I use the Islamic date, maybe you'll be lost. So the 1992, that gives us about how many years? 26 years ago. When I taught this book in a village, that's where I started, and it was in a masjid, a very humble masjid, and the Imam himself was thrilled that this book, it will be taught there. And the first class, always it is, had number of people, just like now, inshallah it will continue like this. And the people who are present, not just the people who wants to dedicate themselves to learn the book, but there are some others who are general spectators. You know, you come to watch a match, so you're going to watch a person for the very first time, so he's watching, you know, he will see maybe next week he's going to come, not going to come, you will see. Others out of curiosity, you don't want to know. And others who are not actually on the manhaj, the methodology, they are actually against the methodology, but they want to see how many people will turn up and how many people will be affected and how many, and these are the ones who are the dangerous ones. But it doesn't matter. We are, as people who are championing the manhaj of the Salaf, the predecessors, topics of ours are open to everybody. We don't have hidden things, we don't have secret things, we don't go behind the wall and make secret meetings, and only the ones who are senior will be in the meetings, and the ones who are not senior, sorry, can't come in. We don't have that. For whatever we have in our chests, we give it to the people. And this is the Qala Allah, Qala Rasulullah. Why should we hide? This is the Qala Allah. Allah said, the Prophet had said. So if you have seen people, whenever they want to do something special, they do it secretly, away from the general masses, then there is something there wrong. As Umar ibn Aziz, he said, إذا رأيت العامة الناس يتهامسون دون العامة فاعلم أنهم على باب تأسيس ضلالة. If you know, they see the people have really taken themselves away from the general people, every time they want to do something, then know that for a fact that this is establishing a ضلالة, a misguidance. Now, just to start with the, as well as the story, that is, I'm just going to complete it, that as soon as the Imam, he accepted for me to teach that book there, straight away that Imam was labeled to be Wahhabi. Wahhabism is, maybe some of you know, they don't know, that they attribute to Muhammad ibn Wahhab, but it's actually a criticism rather than to be saying that this is something good. The wife of this Imam is simple, and she is not learned person. She just comes from here and there. The wives of those who are coming from the third category, the ones who are not from our manhaj, they are upon the opposite of the manhaj. their wives, they were with the wife of this Imam. So this saying to the wife of his, by the way, your Imam, your husband is about to become Wahhabi. So this wife of his, she didn't know whether this is a praising or not praising, whether this is a warning or... So when the Imam, which is her husband, came back to her, so she said to him, and he's conveying to me what happened. This is the Imam, which is his friend, my friend at the moment. He's still alive, alhamdulillah. He says, my wife, she said to me, congratulations, you became a Wahhabi. She thought this is like a promotion. For verily I've heard in the Quran, Allah says, Rabbana innaka antal Wahhab. It never crossed my mind that the Wahhab and the Wahhabi until that day. And I remember that very well. Hopefully they will have more than one class in the month. I have seen through my experience that books have more impact than general lectures. And especially if you have young children who are dedicated, they want to come and learn, but we need to have some sort of guidance in the way to maximize our benefit. Maximizing our benefit can be done through a number of issues that we have learned from the scholars. Number one is that the way that we sit. For verily we have to sit according to the students of knowledge. And the student of knowledge used to sit according to what the companions used to sit with the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ, once he saw the companions are scattered all over the place, he said, Mali arakum izin. Why do I see you scattered? Inna tafarruqakum hadha min ash-shaytan. This scattering of yours is the act of the shaitan. This we have learnt it from the beginning when we started with the Shaykh Rahimahullāh. Every time we have a circle with the Shaykh, we will never sit except in a way that we are just like bees around the queens. You know the bees around the queen in hives? So we are all over the Shaykh from all around, all sides. Number two, to maximize our benefit, we need to have the book. Now, if I may ask for a brother to give me a book. This is the book that we're going to be learning. It's called The Prophet's Prayer Described. This is the translation of this word, Sifatu Salat al-Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But there's an addition here, من التكبير إلى التسليم كأنك تراها, which wasn't being translated here, because that word described, it will be suffice in that, which is says from the takbir, Allahu Akbar, until the salutation, just like you are seeing it. I would say it's important as well to add it to the title. So this is the sifa, the prayer of the Prophet of Allah, from the takbir, beginning of the prayer, to the taslim, the end of the prayer, كأنك تراها. It's this description, but description does not include the word like you're seeing it, does it? So the word like you're seeing it, ما استطعت أن تخفض صوت الميكروفون؟ خفض صوته يا شيخ لأنه أنا يعني قوي الصوت، قوي جدا، يعمل فيدباكس، فهمت علي؟ الله يجزيك. So the كأنك تراها is like you're seeing it, and by Allah, the companions, may Allah be pleased with them, conveyed the prayer of the Prophet ﷺ more than you are seeing it. If you had a video clip of the Prophet ﷺ's prayer, it would not be as conveying to you as how the companions convey the prayer of the Prophet of Allah. I'll give you an example to show you how the companions conveyed the prayer of the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet of Allah, when he used to raise up his hands for takbirat al-ihram, sometimes he would raise up his hands, and I'm just saying the words and then I'll explain to you how. Sometimes he would raise up his hand where his thumb is in parallel to his earlobes. Sometimes his thumbs would be in parallel to his shoulder, and then the tops of his fingers will be in parallel to his earlobes. Now if I'm watching a video, what would you sort of describe a difference between the following two actions? And watch, like this and like this. Did you see any difference? No. Unless you're going to move the video slowly, slow motion, and watch, and then you put a ruler and you measure. What's the difference between this and this?
Yeah, a bit higher.
It's a bit higher, but because you've seen the two of them together. But if I did like this, then after a while, after the second prayer I did like this, how can you describe the difference? That's the precision of the companions. So Prophet of Allah used to raise it sometimes where his thumb it parallel to his earlobes, so the top of his fingers in parallel to the top of his ears. Sometimes his thumb is in parallel to his shoulder, so the top of his fingers in parallel to his earlobes. Okay, so that's now you find that the wording here of the Shaykh Al-Albaani, كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهَا, is like he's seeing the Prophet ﷺ. The description of the prayer is like he's seeing it. He's seeing the Prophet of Allah. The Prophet ﷺ, he said regarding the prayer, صَلُّوا كَمَا رَأَيْتُمُونِي أُصَلِّي, pray as you have seen me praying. That is addressing the companions, because the companions can see the Prophet of Allah. But the Prophet of Allah's wordings is not for the companions, it's to the ummah through the companions. So this word, this hadith, it should be still functioning. صَلُّوا كَمَا رَأَيْتُمُونِي أُصَلِّي, pray as you have seen me praying. We haven't seen the Prophet of Allah praying, but we have the companions conveying the prayer of the Prophet of Allah to such an extent like you are seeing it. That's the title. كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهَا صَلُّوا كَمَا رَأَيْتُمُونِي أُصَلِّي. Also in the Arabic version, it's got Arabic? Has it got Arabic? Nobody? A small print in the book here, which is not in the translation. So from the takbir to the taslim, like you're seeing it, and at the small print here, the hadith of the Prophet of Allah, pray as you have seen me pray. It says here, ta'leef, made by or written by Muhammad Naasir-ud-Deen Al-Albani, means the author, Muhammad Naasir-ud-Deen Al-Albani. Here it says Shaykh Naasir-ud-Deen Al-Albani. What I'm trying to point out here, the Shaykh, when he was alive, he will never tolerate for himself to write Shaykh Muhammad Naasir-ud-Deen Al-Albani. For verily, if you look at his introduction, at the end of each introduction, he would say, وَكَتَبَ Muhammad. See, وَكَتَبَ Muhammad Naasir-ud-Deen Al-Albani. You visit the Shaykh in his house, it says, Manzil Muhammad Naasir-ud-Deen Al-Albani. The house of Muhammad Naasir-ud-Deen Al-Albani. This is the Shaykh of the Shaykhs and the professor of the professors. Whereas one person these days, as soon as he gets his MSc degree, MSc so-and-so, he gets an engineer so-and-so, doctor so-and-so. If you call him Muhammad, not Dr. Muhammad, he'll be upset with you. He'll be annoyed. Yeah, I spent about 7 years of my life to gain, that title. You're saying to me Muhammad without Dr. Muhammad? And as soon as he sits in the office, he has to put sign there, D, that's for doctor. Not all the people would do such a thing. But I'm just saying, this is unfortunately, I'm not talking about any people, I'm talking about our people, the ones upon the methodology. These days, they will write prof, doctor titles. And this reminds me, Ibn Rashid Al-Qayrawani, when he came to Andalus, which is Spain, he had heard these people calling themselves Al-Mu'tadid Billah, Al-Muqtadir Billah, titles. So he said, when I went to Andalus, what had really upsetted me, ذكر أو سماع مقتدر فيها ومعتضد. And then he says, كالحر أو ألقاب مملكة في غير موضعها. That this is the titles, but we're not put in the right position. كالحر يحكي انتفاخا صولة الأسد. Like the cat trying to be a lion. Goes, it's not a lion, but it's trying to be a lion. Same thing here with these people. Shaykh Muhammad Naasir-ud-Deen Al-Albani, He always called himself Muhammad Naasir-ud-Deen, and yet he is an Imam and a Shaykh Rahmatullahi alayhi. How humble he was. When he was teaching in the University of Medina, as we're going to be talking about it, he used to go in his old banger car, and he doesn't really mind, and he doesn't like, he would go into somebody else's, the students, which is an old car, and he would leave the car which has been provided for him by the head of the ministry there, just because of showing humbleness. Shaykh Al-Albaani Rahmatullahi was so humble. There is no turban on top of his head to show that he's a shaykh. It was normal. It was always like having this topi. That's it. Like all the shuyukh which are upon the deen and upon the manhaj, all the time they are people who are humble. Whereas the other ones, as soon as you see him, he will present you his hand, kiss it. And that's not in our manhaj. Kissing the hands, yes, we will kiss the hand of a scholar, but the scholar has to be what? Not giving the hands for you to kiss it. For verily, I've read in the Shaykh Al-Albaani's book, Rahmatullahi alayhi, that the kissing of the hand can be for the father, the mother, and for the scholars, but not the scholars were the ones, as I said, would present his hand before he sees you. So I myself saw the Shaykh Rahmatullahi alayhi just before we entered the Jumu'ah. I took his hand to shake his hand, then I took it just to kiss it. And I remember the powerful grip of the Shaykh Rahmatullahi alayhi. He just took his hand away, and I'm trying to kiss it, I couldn't. I kissed the air instead of kissing the hand. Then I said, Shaykh, didn't you say in your book that we could kiss the hands of the scholars? He said, scholars. Allahu Akbar. He said, scholars. I'm not a scholar. And this is the Shaykh. If he's not a scholar, who's a scholar? I'm telling you, he's not a scholar at that time. Who's a scholar? Rahmatullahi alayhi. The book, the Shaykh Rahmatullahi alayhi, he had made it as a result. He was teaching the book, Kitab Al-Targhib Wa-Tarhib Lil-Imam Al-Mundhiri, in which there's a hadith there, which is narrated by Sunan Abi Dawood, that the Prophet ﷺ had said, the man would pray the prayer and nothing will be written and recorded for him out of this prayer except, and then he starts, the Prophet of Allah, nisfuha, half of it, then rubu'uha, and then after that he goes khumsuha, sudsuha, sub'uha, thumnuha, tus'uha, ushruha, 1/10, and then la yuktabu lahu minha shay, nothing after that will be written for him. So the Prophet of Allah, he said that the person, if he does his best in his prayer, he will get what? The best half. So if you've done half, mashallah, you've done very well in the prayer, you gain half of the reward. But some of them, they will not give the half, they get a third or less, a quarter or a fifth or a sixth, until he mentioned the 10th. Then nothing will be recorded for him. After he had explained this hadith to the students, the idea came to him, and he started with his revolutionary book. And I call it revolutionary book because that book was made at a time where the madhahib, school of thoughts, were prevalent and in control. So the Hanafis, the Shafi'is, Malikis, and the Hanbalis. The strongest one was the Hanafis at that time. Dare you pray other than the prayer of Abu Hanifa amongst the Hanafi people? Dare you pray other than the Shafi'i prayer amongst the Shafi'i followers? And that's why you find in Syria, where the Shaykh Al-Albaani was resigning some of his life, 2 prayers for each prayer, Hanafi and then Shafi'i. And the masjid would pray first prayer, because the person who was in charge at that time was Shafi'i. He said the Shafi'i will be number 1, then the Hanafi Jama'ah will be number 2. So you'll have the Shafi'i Imam comes, and the followers of the Shafi'i, they finish the prayer, they go. And then after that, straight away, or maybe after a while, the Hanafi Imam will come, lead the prayer, and the Hanafi people who are followers will pray behind. Look at that. We have 2 deens, 2 religions. It's not one religion. And that is why Shaykh Al-Albaani made his book at that time, and he was only 33 years old. And the Shaykh Al-Albaani started that book in the year 1366, back to the Hijri date now. 1366, that makes it 74 years ago. Shaykh Al-Albaani made that book, which is called, that is Aslu Sifat al-Salah. The origin, not this one, the origin of this one, which is about 3 volume, big one. Will be 3 of that, more than this. That's everything in it. The origin. That is 1366, 74 years ago. In also, after a while, Shaykh Al-Albaani Rahimahullah, he made out of that book this one, which is Sifatu Salat al-Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That one kept being updated. And that is why the update of here, you might not find it in the original. The original has more, but this one has more updated than the original. The first one was made is the Asl, but the Asl was not printed out until after the Shaykh Al-Albaani's death. After he died, they printed the what? The Asl. Where this one, which is made out of it so many versions, so many copies, the print number 1, print number 2, is being translated in God knows how many languages. And Allah has written for that book to be spread all over the globe, from the east to the west, from the north to the south. You can't find maybe a single house from the Muslim except they have a book like that, Sifatu Salat al-Nabi. Then an idea came to the Shaykh, where he made a concise talkhis, and that talkhis was the last one that the Shaykh had made, which is quarter of this. It's a booklet which gives you the concise of all of that. So it does not mention, for example, the proofs. It only mentions what you should do. And in that talkhis also there are things which is not here. So you are in need actually, if you want to have the whole book, that is the Asl and this and the talkhis. The talkhis has the following benefit, which is so many subtitles. Makes it easy. When you have titles, it'll be easy to trace things. So many titles that will break the points in more points. Number 2, the Shaykh Rahmatullahi Alayhi in that talkhis, concise, he added as well, that is when there is something to do with raising up the hands, he would say to you whether it's a pillar or a condition or it's an obligation, and I'll explain that inshallah. So he will add to it whether it's a shart or rukn or wajib. He will add that to it, which you don't find this in this book. In my class I will lump all of those 3, the Asl with this and the talkhis. So every time we find something, I will add whatever has been the Shaykh had said in the Asl, and also what he had added from the talkhis on top of our Sifat Salat al-Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So you need your book, and with a pencil, that's another one, the issue, and you write on the book. Don't leave the book neat without any writing. No. Scribble on it. Not drawings, but scribble, and it takes whatever fa'idah and write it. So Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said, قَيِّدُ الْعِلْمَ بِالْكِتَابَةِ. If you want to have the knowledge, then extract the knowledge by writing it. If you don't write, that will let you down. That will let you down. Write. So I could see some of you writing, some of you are not writing. I'm not saying the ones who do not write don't come to the class, but I'm just saying the ones who do not write, you are encouraged to write. Write them in the book. Don't write them on pieces of papers, then later on you use them for sandwiches. No, write them in the book. So you could use that book, and after you finish the course, you'll find how much information you have, mashallah. You'll be able to give fatwa. And by the way, the book is not just salah. No, the book is a whole manhaj, full methodology. We're going to study on top of the salah, with it, aqidah. Aqidah will be going there inside as well. We'll studying with it as well, hadith. We will be studying with it as well, tafsir. We'll be studying with it as well, fiqh. All of those things will be lumped into this book. So as we're going along, so we're going to make it really very interesting. Bi-idhnillah. So the very important thing is to write. So if you are able to buy the book, if you're an Arab, I urge you to buy the book in Arabic. Don't buy it in English. Write in your own language. If you are Somali, don't understand English, buy Somali. If you're Zanzibari, buy Zanzibari. The language of yours will be better, much better than using a different language, because terminology differs from one place, from one language to another. Now we understood now the Shaykh had made the first one, which is the asl, the origin, big than this, more than 3 times than that. Then after that he made this out of it, but this one is being kept updated and upgraded. There are things here which is not in the asl. And the last thing, he had summarized the book into talkhis. In that talkhis he added things which are not here. That is, number 1, titles, and number 2, he added this pillar, shart, prerequisite, or a wajib. What is the difference? We know that in our ahkam we have the fard, then we have under the fard mustahab, then after the mustahab we have mubah, and after the mubah we have the makruh, and after the makruh we have haram. 5. Let's count them together. Wa fard, which is obligatory. Number 2, underneath that, mustahab, recommended. What is the fard? The fard, if you do it compulsory, then you'll be rewarded, and if you don't do it, you'll be what? Sinned. Again, the fard, if you do it, you'll be what? Rewarded, and if you don't do it, you'll be what? Sinned. The recommended is that if you do it, you'll be rewarded, but if you don't do it, you will not be sinned. Third one, mubah. Mubah means it is permissible. So whether you do it or you don't do it, there is no reward or sin entailed. Let's give an example for the 3 categories. Fard, like salah. If you don't do salah, you'll be sinned. If you do the salah, you'll be what? Rewarded. Mustahab. Mustahab, like this nafila, voluntary prayer, not the obligatory prayer, the voluntary prayer. If you do it, you'll be rewarded. If you don't do it, you'll be no sin. Mubah, eat banana. You eat banana. Whether you eat banana or you don't eat banana, there is no reward, there is no sin. Then we have makruh. Makruh, disliked. The disliked, if you don't do it, you'll be rewarded. And if you do it, you're not going to be sinned. So something makruh, which is like, for example, to dress up that is in a way which might be tight on you. Not really tight, just a bit tight. Makruh. That's called makruh. So the person is as well disliked to start playing around with his prayer. If you stop it, you'll be rewarded, but if you do it, you're not going to be sinned. Last one is haram. Prohibited. If you do it, you'll be sinned, and if you don't do it, you'll be what? Rewarded. So for example, drinking alcohol, it's haram. So if you do it, you'll be sinned. If you don't do it, you'll be what? Rewarded. That's the haram. That's, now we got the 5 first. Now under the first one, which is fard, this fard, obligatory, has underneath it things which are called pillars and condition, and something which is not pillar or a condition. 3 things. Under the fard, there is a pillar, condition, and something which is not a pillar or condition. What is the pillar and what is the condition, and what is that thing which is not a pillar or condition? In general, pillar and a condition more obligatory than the obligatory. A pillar or a condition, if you leave it, if you don't do it, then that act will be invalid. But why we say pillar and why we say condition? Pillar is part of the act, condition is not part of the act. For example, wudu. Part of the act of the wudu is to wash your face. That's a pillar. If you don't wash your face, your wudu is what? Invalid. Now, water being clean, is that part of the wudu or outside the wudu actions? Outside. It's a condition. Because you have made wudu in water which is impure, your wudu is what? Invalid. So we understood now the purity of the water and the washing of the face in terms of strength wise, they're the same. But that one is a prerequisite condition, because outside the action of the wudu, whereas washing the face is part of the wudu. Am I making myself clear? Okay. So if I ask now, making ruku' in the prayer, is that a pillar or a condition for the prayer? Pillar, because it's part of the what? The prayer. Making wudu for the prayer, wudu is a condition or a pillar for the prayer? Condition, because it's not part of the prayer. The prayer consists from takbirat al-ihram, ruku', sujood. So wudu is outside. Did you understand me now? So the wudu is a condition for the prayer. Okay? Right. We're going to say now, intention for the prayer. Intention, to say it, intention for the prayer. Is that a condition or is that a pillar?
Condition.
You have a difference amongst the panel here. Some people say condition, some people say pillar. And I will say to you, all of you right. If you consider it part of the prayer, it becomes a pillar. If you don't consider it part of the prayer, it becomes what? A condition. That's the intention, the difference among the scholars regarding it. So you're right, all of you, inshallah. Right, pillar and a condition, you understood. The absence of that, it will invalidate the act. If you did not wash your face, your wudu is invalid. If you did not make wudu, your prayer is invalid. If you did not make ruku', your rak'ah is invalid. Okay? But there is something there which is less powerful. It is obligatory than the pillar and the prerequisite, which we call it wajib, fard, but it's not pillar or condition. And that is, an example, saying Bismillah for the wudu. You know, when you say wudu, you have to have the intention, and you have to say what? Bismillah. Bismillah. Now, if we made Bismillah a pillar from the wudu, then all of those people who forgot to say Bismillah in their wudus will be what? How many wudu will be invalidating these days? How many people make their wudu without Bismillah? And that is why we say it is not a pillar, nor is a condition. It is what? Less. Just fard, wajib, obligatory. So if you forgot it, no problem. Do you understand me? If you forgot it, otherwise, if it's a pillar or condition, you have to repeat the whole wudu, not to say the whole of the prayer. Okay. Now after this introduction, just like a last question I'm going to ask, and there's one answer for this one. Making close sequence in the wudu, is that a pillar or a condition? You know, close sequence? That means when I wash my face, I have to follow it up with the following limb. For example, washing the hands straight away. I cannot have a phone call and speak to somebody and then after 5 minutes go and continue. It's called close sequence. So if you had, for example, your wudu, you started, you washed your face, you had a phone call, you started talking, and after 5 minutes you put the phone down, you have to start from the beginning. So that close sequence, is that a pillar or a condition? Or is it wajib? Huh? Is it part of the wudu? What is the wudu? Is that part of the wudu? It's a condition. It's not a pillar. So that's a practice for that. Alhamdulillah, you understand now the first phase, which is we have introduced you to the book. The book, in the introduction of it, there is a methodology. We will go through it. It's very important. My plan is to have somebody to read and I will elaborate. The elaboration of mine will be much more than the reading. So somebody will be reading. So I would like, inshallah, in the following class, somebody who is good in pronunciation of English, that's number one, and also when it comes to the verse, then he will be able to read the verse properly. Who is going to be amongst you volunteering, inshallah? That's for you to decide, Shaykh Ishaq. Okay, so you wanted to decide, inshallah, for next class. First of all, saying Bismillah, you say it where you make the wudu, regardless whether in the toilet or outside the toilet. The only not allowed place is while you are on that thing that you urinate in. So if you are in the basin or the sink next to the toilet, you say Bismillah. But you're not allowed to say Bismillah when you are doing it or you are making wudu in that thing. You're not allowed to make wudu in the thing that you urinate in. So you say Bismillah. in your toilet. Some of the toilets these days like a mansion. It's like a bedroom. You got everything except for a bed. Well, the bed is it's the bathing place. Subhanallah. Fine. Before I start, do you have anything that you want to elaborate? Before we start, you want to ask about the structure? Okay. Let's go to the Shaykh himself. Shaykh Muhammad Naasir-ud-Deen Al-Albaani Rahimahullāh. I'm going to give a glimpse of his life. I have made my own summarization for the Shaykh. Unfortunately, it was on a hard disk and there was a backup, and both are not working. The disk and the backup. But inshallah, once I go to my country, and I'll get them inshallah alive, because there it costs much less than here, then I'll take up my summarization, but it's still in the mind. Alhamdulillah. Shaykh Rahmatullahi alayhi, we cannot give exactly the date that he was born, because he himself, he said that my date of birth was written and there was no sort of precision regarding the issue. Same thing like if you ask your father now, your mother was old, she will not tell you exactly the date like we have it these days. The 5th of December 1960, for example. They don't have that. So back in the 1920s and the 30s, they don't have that system. So they will tell you, well, I was born in the flood year. I was born in the snow year. I was born in the fire year. There's something, an event took place, a fire or flood or something like this, and they will 2 years after the flood, or 3 years before the flood, like this. And he would say, this my mother told me and my father told me. The Shaykh was born back in the year 1914. Rahmatullahi alayhi. Makes it now more than 100 if he's alive. The Shaykh was born in a place called Shkodra, which is the capital of Albania at that time. And his father, he was a scholar in the Hanafi madhab. The people of the Albanians, they're called Arnaut, which is like a tribe. Whenever they want to refer to a dispute regarding their deen, they will come to his father. So his father was a scholar. So the father of his, you could say he was the first premier sheikh of the sheikh. Now, Shaykh Al-Albaani rahmatullahi alayhi, he says that when his father sensed that there's a change in the country, when a person called Ahmad Zogo, and the Shaykh says whenever he mentions his name, Azagha Allahu qalbah, Allah had taken away his heart from the deen. He wanted to implement all of that which has been implemented by Kemal Ataturk. I don't know if you know about Kemal Ataturk, the one who had led Turkey, and he had removed the Sharia, and he puts anything but the Sharia. He puts man-made law. He had taken the Khilafah away, Khilafah al-Uthmaniyya, and he just put all of that which is to do with secularism. Kemal Ataturk, he's kafir, and being mentioned as a kafir by a number of scholars. The Ahmad Zogi wanted to do the same thing. Not only that, he had imposed upon the men to put a specific hat, which is a hat that resembles the Western people. So even the men, they have to put a special hat called borneta, just like the Western people. Basically, he wants to dissolve the identity of the Muslims. And as for the women who got hijab, they've been teased. So the father of the Shaykh, he found that this is not a good place to live in, and he could see where the country is heading to. So he decided, and correctly so, to take his family to a place where he himself read a number of ahadith from the Prophet ﷺ, that this place is a blessed place, and that is Bilad al-Sham. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He intends something, He will lay down the causes for it. So if He intended for the Shaykh Al-Albaani to become a muhaddith, He will lay the causes for it. And one of the causes that his father had decided to take him from the land of Albania all the way, and you know where Albania is, yes? But he doesn't know where is Albania? You don't know where is Albania?
No, I am.
Oh, you're Albanian. You are Albanian yourself, MashaAllah. We have an Albanian amongst us. Albania is like next to Yugoslavia, not really far away from there. Yeah, well, anyway, next to Ukraine. Next to Kosovo. Albania, when he had migrated to Bilad al-Sham, and we took the migration here with thousands of miles, it's not next door. You're talking about from part of Europe to the Middle East, Bilad al-Sham. A big migration. The Shaykh arrived there in Bilad al-Sham when he was 8 years old. And the Shaykh, his father, enrolled him in a school called Madrasatul Is'af al-Khayri. And I have even an image of that school in Syria. That school, the elementary school where the Shaykh had studied, called Madrasatul Is'af al-Khayri. You're welcome to take it. And he doesn't know any Arabic, the Shaykh. Nothing. He's 8 years old, no Arabic. But later on he is eloquent speaker, better than the Arabs themselves. And that's not really astonishing. You find Arabs being taught by Pakistani Arabic language, because that Arab person did not really, was not really good enough. And that person, he studied the Nahu and the grammar and all of that, he's master than him. And that's no problem. Imam al-Bukhari, Imam Muslim, none of them is Arabs. None of these are Arabs. Abu Dawood, Al-Nasai, Ibn Majah. Ibn Majah, but the rest are not Arabs. They're not Arabs. They are non-Arabs. But they have the ones who collected the hadith for us. The Shaykh, Rahmatullah alayhi, said, I entered the madrasa and I was maybe 1 or 2 years old, older than this, the boys, because I'm just enrolled in the beginning from 8 years old. But straight away he was promoted to be in a higher class because of his smartness. Very smart, very quick. And the teacher of the Arabic language, whenever he wants to test the students regarding their grammar, he will give them a poetry line. A'rib. A'rib means make sure that you understand what is this subject, object, okay? In order to understand how to put the vowel at the last letter, because this is the Arabic eloquence. So the last vowel on the last letter, what is it? Fatha, Dhamma, Kasra. Okay. So all of the students who are Arab in the class, they are not good enough to answer the question. And the Shaykh, he says that the teacher always will make me the last one to answer the question, because he knows I know the answer. Al-Albani, call him Albanian. Answer. So he gives them the right answer, and then he says to the rest of the students, shame on you. Arabs, you don't know the answer, and whereas Albanian knows the answer? Shame on you. And that was the case. Shaykh Rahmatullahi alayhi grew up into that atmosphere, environment, until he finished his preparatory class, elementary class. And the elementary class at that time is equivalent to secondary classes these days, even to universities. Wallahi, they found the person graduated from the university, he can't read the verse of Quran properly. The Shaykh Rahmatullah, along with that learning, he was learning the fiqh al-Hanafi from his father. He took all the fiqh of the Hanafi madhab from his father, and he read the whole of the Quran mujawwadan, meaning like with tajweed, in front of his father from the beginning to the end. So he's having ijazah. He had ijazah from 2 sheikhs, from Sa'id al-Burhani and from his father in the Quran. So he had the whole of the Quran recited by the sheikh in front of his teachers, and he being given ijazah. That means he's okay to read the Quran, the whole of it. The Shaykh Rahmatullahi alayhi, he says, But my father, after I finished my elementary school, he took me out of the school and he saw that there is no benefit in this, sort of teaching system. And that was at the time when the teaching system was much better than today. And he put him in there something called katatib. What is katatib? In the Masjid al-Fan, shuyukh, teaching the students of knowledge, Quran, fiqh, tafsir, hadith, all of that. The Shaykh also been given by his maternal uncle a profession to learn. He was a carpenter. Rahmatullahi alayhi. He said, I was a carpenter and I stayed for carpenting for 2 years. And what our job is to find somebody's house, because they were old houses, needs maintenance. So go and change the wood because it's been rotten, because of the cold weather, because of all that. We'll change it. But when it comes to the winter, we do nothing. That means we're out of job. We are poor. It's very poor. So his father, he said, I don't think this job is good enough for you, because it's not giving you enough money. Let me teach you something else. And that is to repair watches. And if I want to summarize the Shaykh Al-Albaani's triumph, I will say it is one word: as-sabr, patience. He is very patient, so patient, because to study that particular knowledge from the Deen, that is hadith, needs a lot of patience. It's not like any other books. If you like other types of knowledge, studying fiqh, studying tafsir, the hadith is an ocean, and it is not as entertaining like the fiqh. So you're reading in the biography of the men, rijal, sanad, it needs patience. So that profession that he learned from his father, to fix and repair watches, the truths and all of those little things, taught him more patience as well, helped him to be, those little delicate, dials, to put them together. Before it was, it was not like, for example, digital these days. All of it like these metal things. I used to repair watches. So what he used to do is to, go with his father in the Fajr, to Salat al-Fajr, open the shop after the Fajr. Tell me which one of you can open this shop after Fajr. And the Prophet said, Burika li ummati fi bukuriha. Allah put the barakah for my ummah in the early mornings. That's the barakah. Ask those who have been doing that in the Fajr, they will know that there's a barakah there, seeking the rizq at that time. Story on the side, I know a person who has made, mashallah, a lot of money. I asked him, how did he do it? He said, I started by buying and selling cars. At that time of mine, he's talking about 25 years ago, 20 years ago, there was no internet. There was just auto trader. It comes on Arbi'a. Arbi'a means Wednesday. So I'll buy it straight away from the shop, very early. Finish my prayer, the Fajr, go and buy it. So I get to the bargain cars, straight away call them, and I get them, buy them. First one, and everybody sleep. By the time they wake up, 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, I'm already had bought my cars. Then I sell them, and that's how I made my money. So Allah will put barakah into what? The early mornings. Shaykh Al-Albaani used to go with his father early in the morning, stayed with his father fixing watches, and in the afternoon they go to the prayer, Dhuhr, and his father will go home because he's old, relaxes, where the Shaykh stays to cover up for his father. Then when it's Asr, he will come back with his father, and the Shaykh will excuse his father for minutes to go. He wants to leave and do what he likes to do. The Shaykh Rahmatullahi alayhi, he says that I used to love reading, these police stories. Police stories, like for example, they even translated from the West. And that actually added to his Arabic vocabularies. He used to love to read what? Stories. القصة البوليسية in Arabic. Story to do with thieves and burglars and all of that. He used to read them. And then after that, he started to read something to do with the Deen, bit by bit. Yet it's not to do with the Hadith. Nothing. We're talking about it when he's 10, 12, that age. Then the Shaykh Rahmatullah alayhi says, when I left my father in the afternoon, in the Asr, to go out, I went to the library, to people who are, when they sell books, they sell them on the floor. So I found there from a person who is Egyptian, he brings books from Egypt. He found a magazine, Majallat al-Sunnah, Sunnah magazine. He said, which is Muhammad Rashid Rida. And I started reading that magazine, and reading. And then he talked about a book, Ihya-Ulūm-ud-Deen. That this book has number of things which are not correct, and the checking of that book is in another book called Mughni al-Asfar for Al-Hafiz Al-Iraqi. So he said, I wanted that checking of that book. Something made me curious, I want that checking. And this is checking with the hadiths. He didn't know how many volumes, how many books, and he doesn't have money. So he started asking the seller, no, I don't have it. He kept looking until he found it. And it was 3 volumes. He can't buy it. So what he did, he hired it. He could hire books at that time. He hired it, took it home, and remember that we don't have, like, for example, these ball pens and very quick ones. They have the risha, like the ink thing that you go buy, ink one. So he bought one which is thick and bought one which is what? Sort of pointed end. One which is thick, right, thick. And because they don't have a photocopy at that time, so he started what? Writing the book. Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3 with his own hands. Imagine. This is the patience. And then when he arrived to the second volume, he said, oh, there are footnotes. I could have my own elaboration on that. So with that small pointed end ink pen, he used to write the footnotes with a different size. But he said to himself, the whole volume, the first one, I didn't do that. Look, he started from the beginning. So ignore what he had written for the full volume, started the first volume from the beginning and with the footnotes from the beginning. Rahmatullah alayhi. Until he finished the book, and that was the start that made the hadith knowledge in his heart. He loved it so much, and he started to read. When he read this, Mughni al-Asfar, Hafiz al-Iraqi, to check the book of Ihya-Ulūm-ud-Deen, that gave him the kick for the hadith. The Shaykh Rahmatullahi alayhi says that I used to come to the gatherings in the masjid, and my father would make sure that I go to the Hanafi group. There's a Shafi'i group. So I used to listen. Sometimes I could hear the teacher of the Shafi'i, he's more correct using the hadith than the one which is doing with the Hanafi. So he said, like I steal from Fatawa of the Shafi'i. It's not allowed. It's like they treat it like Christianity and Islam, different religions. And then the Shaykh developed number of things. One of them is the first book that he had written, which is تحذير الساجد من اتخاذ القبور مساجد. First book. And that is to warn the person who prays from taking the masjids are to be places for to take the graveyard as a place for worship. You're not allowed to pray in the graveyard. You're not allowed to pray in a masjid where there's a grave. It's a very great book. And the Shaykh we're talking about, he is still a teenager when he made that book. Rahmatullahi alayhi. In that book, he had mentioned you're not allowed to pray in the masjid that's got a grave. He used to pray in the Masjid Al-Umawi. And the Masjid Al-Umawi, it has more than a grave. I have seen in the Masjid Al-Umawi, it's got more than a grave. So he stopped praying in that masjid. And he prayed in another masjid, Masjid Al-Tawbah, where the Shaykh of his, Sayyid al-Burhani, he used to be the Imam there. But there is something else that made him as well now not to pray the second jama'ah. Remember that the person who was in charge of the Ministry of Endowment at that time, he was a Shafi'i madhab. He imposed that the first prayer will be Shafi'i, the second prayer will be the Hanafi followers. The Shaykh Al-Albaani, after he had read in the knowledge that the hadith says that there is no jama'ah after the jama'ah. You cannot make two jama'ah, a jama'ah first, then after that another jama'ah comes in. The jama'ah, the first one, is the one which is legitimate, and the other one is a jama'ah which is a bid'ah. And when the Shaykh takes something on board, that's another issue for the Shaykh, he will implement it. He will not let go, and he will defend what he believes in, and he does not give up unless there's a proof. So the Shaykh, through his study, he learned that the jama'ah after the jama'ah is not allowed. Now, instead of praying with the Hanafi, which is the second jama'ah, he started to pray where? With the Shafi'i. His father met him. So what are you doing? Praying with the Shafis. He said, Father, I cannot pray except in the first jama'ah. After a sort of a dialogue, and you could say argument, the father, he said, okay, I'll let you off for this one. But when it comes now to worse than that, and that is Shaykh Sa'id al-Din al-Burhani, whenever he wants to travel, he would appoint the father of the Shaykh Al-Albaani to be his imam. In case he leaves, travels, the imam, the second imam, it would be his father of Shaykh Al-Albaani. So that's when the matter was escalated. So his father is leading the prayer, and yet Shaykh Al-Albaani does not pray with whom? With his father. He prays with the first jama'ah. And that's when his father came to Shaykh Al-Albaani, and he said to him, either al-ittifaq or al-firaq. Either you come to be in the madhab al-Hanafi, or this is the splitting point with me and you. Look to what extent. Shaykh Al-Albaani said to him, Father, give me 3 days. So he gave him 3 days. After the 3 days, he said to the Shaykh, said to his father, with all your respect, I cannot stay with you imposing upon me that particular school of thought. If you want to say that, well, this is called uquq and dutiful, no, it is not. Allah says, وَإِنْ جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَى أَلَّا تُشْرِكَ بِي شَيْئًا, وَإِنْ جَاهَدَاكَ, your parents, that they wanted to strive to make you to be shirk with me, فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا, don't obey them. وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا, be good to them, but don't follow them, don't obey them. So the Shaykh, he said, I cannot, because I believe that this is right from the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, and you are imposing upon me to go against what I believe. So the Shaykh, he took his stuff and he left the house of his father. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided him, also his father, because he was as well Hanun, he gave him some money. The Shaykh managed to open a shop for himself, and then the Shaykh had this treasure which is called Al-Maktab Al-Umayyah. Maktab Al-Umayyah is a library, public library, which is situated in Dimashq, not far away from where the Shaykh used to work. And the Shaykh used to go there almost every day for hours. That was at the beginning. And the workers, they got fed up of the Shaykh, because the Shaykh always asked, can you give me that manuscript, can you that manuscript, can you that manuscript? So they gave him a room, and usually they don't do that. So they gave him a little room in the library, so he could really, you want to ask your stuff, you do your stuff. Because they're working for the Shaykh Al-Albaani all the time. Bring me that, bring me this, bring me that. So they gave him a room. And you know that as well, the bench where the people want to revise in the library, at that time it will be fit for 4 people. 4 students, 2 students opposite to 2 students. But the Shaykh, because he is in the hadith, and the hadith needs not one book, lots of manuscript, the Shaykh will take the whole table, the whole bench for him. There will be no space for other students, and that's why they had to give him a room. Until one day, the ministry of Syria, they wanted to do a project, and they could see that there is no power in their PhD people who are teaching the university to do such a thing. They refer to this man who is what? Elementary school graduate, Shaykh Al-Albaani, to this project, which is to check up on certain hadiths. So they came to him and he said, this is what we want to do. What do you think? He said, I will do it for you, but on one condition, that I could enter the library whenever I want, day or night, 24 hours. So the university, they come to the librarians, which is the Maktab al-Umayyah, and they discuss that issue with them. And they said, the person who's the guard, and the guard will let the Shaykh, anytime he comes, 12 o'clock midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, he'll come to the library. Then later on, the guard gave him a key. You could enter whenever you want, you could lock up when you want. And we're talking about library, it's not like bigger than your masjid, it's about 10 times. Big library, and it's got manuscripts a long time ago. The Shaykh Rahmatullah alayh, he would go and read, and he would go to the books which are on the top shelf. They need a ladder, you know, like a steps. You go on top of that ladder, the steps, and he would stay for 6 hours on the top. He doesn't want to go come back home. 6 hours reading on that, you know, top of that. 6 hours, they can't really stand up on 6 hours. Standing up on a step for 6 hours reading. Until he had a disease in his eye. It's called a dhubaba. It's like you're seeing a black spot. When you see like a black spot in front of you. And his eyes becoming like with even blood coming out of it. So the Shaykh went to the doctor, and the doctor said to him, you can't read. And you have to have relaxation for at least a month or so. So the Shaykh, he said, I stayed for 1 week. I couldn't take it. He's away from his books. But he wanted now to do something which will not as well contradict with the doctor's advice. So he said, I will ask the person who is the writer, until my eyes goes better, to go and write for me from the manuscript something, which is the Al-Malahi, is a booklet, treatise made by a scholar in Al-Haythami, that is to rewrite that on a different. So he went there and he told him to do that. So the writer, the manuscripts, he started to write, and then he came to the Shaykh. He said, there is a malzama. Malzama means like about 16 pages. Malzama, they call it the paper, is being missing. And remember, the books at that time, they're not like this, they're being sewn. So it looks like this thing is being taken out, and it could be put in a different book. So the Shaykh Al-Albaani checked it. He said, yes, there is something missing from that book. Now that malzama was the reason for the Shaykh to be the star that he is today. That malzama, the Shaykh, he did like this, and after just another week he started looking for that. Where is it? He's saying maybe that the person who had sewn these 2 pages or 16 pages, he sewn them in the book of hadith. So he read all the books of the hadiths. Maybe he put them in different, maybe in the book of the fiqh. He read all the book of the fiqh, until he came to the whole books of the whole library. More than 10,000. Reading just to look for what?
16 pages.
Subhanallah. When he read and he came across treasure, hidden treasure, and he was writing, he saw that there's a treasure there. So he regretted that he did not take as much as notes as possible. So he read them again. This is the whole library. Again. That's called the sabr, the patience. He read them again. And then after that he reads, he takes. From those books, that is what we say the foundation upon which the Shaykh Al-Albaani made his books. He made his references, his own. Not only that, he made his contents, you know, that library had no contents. So if you come, you don't know where his books and where his... So he made a fihris, index for the whole library. Shaykh Al-Albaani made an index for the whole library. So what do you want to find in the library? Book such and such, you look at the fihris of Shaykh Al-Albaani. He made a fihris of that. So he took all of those traja that the takharijat, what is the hadith looks like, and there's the hadith who had said it and who did not say it. And from that, his books, Silsila Sahiha, Silsila Da'ifa, and all other books of the Shaykh, they were from that reference that he made from the 10,000s of books which were in the library. Shaykh Al-Albaani read all of them twice. And he said it is Qissatul Waraqat al-Daya, the story of the missed paper, the lost paper. This is the story of the lost paper, which was made. As I said, Allah, if He intends to do something, He will lay the causes for it. And that was the cause. Shaykh Al-Albaani rahmatullahi alayh. Then after that, he was prisoned twice in Syria because of the Sufis there at that time. They were saying to the authorities lies about him. In one of the time that he was imprisoned, he made even a book. He made the Mukhtasar Sahih Muslim, which is not to be found until today. He made it. And the Shaykh, he was imprisoned in the same prison that Ibn Taymiyyah was imprisoned into. And that is Sijn al-Qal'ah. Where Sijn al-Qal'ah, Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah used to say, Khalwati, this is my place where I could have nobody disturbing me. And the Shaykh Al-Albaani, when he was in the prison, he said, this is Mahabba, this is my love time. So he had a book, he just had a pen and a rubber, and he had the book of Sahih Muslim, which is being given to him the last moment when he was shoved into the car. When the car of the police, the army, when they shoved him in, his son brought it to him, gave it to him just the last moment. With that, he had made Mukhtasar Sahih Muslim, not the Mundhari. There's a Mukhtasar Muslim, the Mundhari, checked by Shaykh Al-Albaani, is different. This is made by the Shaykh himself, like Mukhtasar Sahih Bukhari. And even the Shaykh in the prison, he had the light really not that much, that strong. So he wanted, more light. So he asked the guard on the prison, he wanted more light. He said, well, you have to pay for it. I'll pay you. So they brought some wires, and they brought the light which is in the ceiling down where the Shaykh can write, and he had made that book into that prison. Shaykh rahmatullah alayh, then he traveled to Jordan to give lectures. The Shaykh used to give lectures all over the country, in the north, in the south, in Syria. Da'wah man. He was a da'wah man, proper da'wah man. So in Jordan, he will give the lectures as well. And the Shaykh Rahimahullah bought a house and the land for himself in Jordan. Cut the short story short, and even he was extradited, he was expelled from Jordan. One night they took him, just two people from the secret police, outside the country to Syria. The Syria secret police asked for him. The Shaykh Al-Albaani thought that he would not meet them, so he went to Lebanon, and then from Lebanon to Emirates, and he stayed in Emirates, then back to Jordan. And in Jordan he stayed there, and he was having lots of students of his. And I remember the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayh, whenever he comes to the Jumu'ah Salah in Amman, in a particular masjid, all the students of knowledge will come to that masjid, not because of the khatib. The khatib is boring actually, but because the Shaykh Al-Albaani goes there. So the Shaykh Al-Albaani goes there, and I remember one day, and this is to be documented as well on that video camera, that the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayh came, and as soon as he comes out, every time from Jumu'ah, I come from my city just to come to that Jumu'ah, and it takes me 2 transports to arrive. Every time he goes into this, the Shaykh will be surrounded by lots of people when he comes. It's like a king coming out of the masjid. And then he'll be escorting into the car. And in the car, people will be jumping the front and jumping the back, on top of the car, on the bonnet, on the back, trying to hear. Even there's a person whom it's called, his name is Sami, I remember him. He had managed, every time the Shaykh will come out, he will stick to the Shaykh, goes inside the car, and because he works for the Shaykh in the Maktaba, he will be always entitled to be seated in the car. So he had recorded the Shaykh And he named the recordings Fatawa Sayyara, the Fatawa of the car. This is not in the Silsilat al-Huda wal Nur. It's not in the Silsilat of Shaykh Al-Albaani. It's a different Fatawa Sayyara. So one day I remember the Prime Minister. You know the Prime Minister? The Prime Minister is the second man after the king. A Prime Minister. Abdus Salam al-Majali, I remember his name. He came to that masjid, because that masjid lies in an area which is like a bit of posh area. He came to the masjid and he had a thobe on. And he had 4 to 6 bodyguards. I've seen 4. I knew I didn't know that he is the Prime Minister. You know when a Prime Minister comes or a king, usually there's lots of people around him, isn't it? But they want to see him. So, and this is the case would be, you know, it's Abdus Salam Majali, is really Prime Minister, everybody knows him. When he came out of the masjid, and the Shaykh Al-Albaani came out of the masjid, I remember that, the humiliation into the eyes of that man. Only the 4 bodyguards around that person. And all the people of the masjid with the Shaykh Rahmatullah alayhi. This is the mulk. This is the sovereignty. This is the honor. The scholar. All of them with the Shaykh. And he was so embarrassed. The Prime Minister was so embarrassed coming out with his 4 bodyguards. I had to ask, who is this man? Myself. They told me the Prime Minister. It's a Prime Minister. Subhanallah. Nobody's with him. If he came to a different masjid, there'll be lots of people around him, especially the beggars. Money from him. So Shaykh Al-Albaani had the people, and that's the triumph, the knowledge. Rahmatullah alayhi. Shaykh Al-Albaani was elected to go and teach in the University of the Medina, and there he loved the environment, the atmosphere. But the Shaykh Al-Albaani was envied from even shuyukh there because of his knowledge. He was the imam of his own at that time. When he came to teach in the University of Medina, there was a person called Mukhtar Amin al-Shanqiti, the one who is made the book Adwa al-Bayan fi Idah al-Qur'ani bil-Qur'an. He used to be a teacher in the university, and whenever he sees the Shaykh Al-Albaani coming, he will stop the class until the Shaykh passes, as a respect for the Shaykh Al-Albaani rahmatullah alayhi. And he is a great scholar, but he acknowledges the scholarship of the Shaykh. The Shaykh was doing something none of the other teachers would do. When they finished the class, all the teachers, what would they do? They go to the room and start sipping tea and chit-chat, isn't it? So that's all the teachers would do. They have a room called teacher rooms, and they will go to it. The Shaykh Al-Albaani, no. He will leave his class, and then he will go to the courtyard in the university, and his students and other students from other faculties, they come, and he will have another whole theater. And that's where the envy came from. Everybody wants to listen to the Shaykh. And not only that, when the teacher of fiqh gives them a class, the students started daring themselves, by the way, Shaykh, doctor, is this authentic hadith or not? They learned from the Shaykh Al-Albaani. Are you sure that this is authentic? And that's what had made it as well worse. Rahmatullah alayhi. Shaykh Al-Albaani, during the Jumu'ah, sometimes he would go for picnics. And when he goes for picnics, he goes from the morning, and he goes to the mountains in Medina, and he would perform the Jumu'ah where the picnic is. You remember there's a haram in the Medina. And that made some of those even teachers more envy, more of hatred. That's why they wrote to the king, and the king again expelled him from the country. Shaykh Ibn Baz Rahimahullah, he wrote a letter to Shaykh Al-Albaani, says, wherever you are, you're going to give rain, because you're a scholar. And the Shaykh Ibn Baz, he said about Shaykh Al-Albaani, I didn't know anybody underneath the heavens more knowledgeable than the hadith these days than the Shaykh Al-Albaani rahmatullah alayhi. He said, he's mujaddidu hadha al-asr. When he was like, who's the mujaddid, the revival of the religion? He said, Shaykh Al-Albaani. And that is Shaykh Ibn Baz, he said that. Shaykh Al-Albaani mujaddid hadha al-asr. He was on his own. Patient man, so patient. If I'm going to talk about him, he's another class for this, but this is inshallah a glimpse. Finally we come to the Shaykh rahmatullah alayhi. He went to Jordan back, and he stayed in Jordan, and he wrote his will. And his will, still you could see it on internet, and in that will he had counseled his wife, his children, his sons, and also he made sure who's going to wash him after that. And Rahmatullah alayhi, even he was sleeping, his son, one of his sons, I can't remember, Abdul Musawwar or other, he said that the Shaykh, even in his sleep, he's still in the hadith. So he say, bring me Al-Ilal, bring me the book of Ilal. Bring me Sunan Abi Dawood while he's sleeping. In the second page, look down, and he's talking while he's sleeping. Look down, sometimes we see him as well, raising up his hand, and he's writing while he's asleep. Because he lives with the hadith. He lives with the Prophet ﷺ. Patience was the description of the Shaykh Al-Albani's life. He was so patient. Rahmatullah alayh. And just come to my mind something that even baffled the carpenter. The Shaykh was, mashallah, even clever in dunya wise. Whenever he goes to his house, he's got mechanical things. He made it himself. That he's got chicken. He feeds his chicken while he is teaching. So he made like pipes and canals and and they will go to this chicken, he will eat. The Shaykh Rahmatullah alayhi used to have a desk to write on it. It's like his office. And there's a door. So every time the door opens, okay, it opens this way and it blocks his entrance from this. Okay, so he has to go this way and then open the door and then leave. Okay?
So he make it easy, just go straight in.
He went to the carpenter, he said, I want the door to be the other way round. It's not to open this way, no. To take the hinges from here and put them where? On the other side. So you could open here and the door will be there and he will be straight behind his arm. The carpenter, well, why is that? I mean, what is the point of this? He said the point of this, that he does 5 daily prayers in the masjid. So he said, if the door was like this, I'm adding 5 extra steps every time I come behind my desk. 5 extra steps, and 5 extra steps will go up. That's 10 steps for each prayer. 10 steps multiplied by 5 daily prayers, that's 50 steps. That's a lot of time. So he made the door to open like this, to save himself 50 steps every day. That's how the time of the scholars was so precious. Some of the people that got spare time to go and spend it on something else. Every single moment of their time, they're very precious. Rahmatullahi ala Shaykh. From the Shaykh's things that I have sensed from him, I have documented that in my own, and I've got it alhamdulillah on my laptop, that the Shaykh one day, when I grabbed his hand to shake his hand, because I was too fast, I did not grab the whole of his hand, half of it. He said, this is nisfu musafaha, this is half for handshake. Then he shook my hand full. Rahmatullahi alayhi. By this, and by the way, the structure of the class, I'm not going to exceed an hour and a half. Is that okay? That's too much. So, what time is the Isha?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. So we've got 9 minutes until 8 o'clock, yes? So if you have any questions during these 9 minutes, please go ahead. Jazakumullahu khairan. And let the question be in the title. Now, from the back, somebody had put his finger up? No. Fadal. Albani, you want to ask a question?
Regarding to the wudu, I'm a little bit in doubt with myself.
Yeah,
but this maybe works.
Okay.
When I have a wudu, let's say I'm doing salat al-duha in the daytime. Okay, get wudu, get ready, prepare, finish, and everything with salat. Now I want to change the clothes. Is it the wudu? Okay.
Can you just, before I continue, is the sisters as well? Okay, I have to repeat the question. I would like to have another microphone which is between the people. Would be better, so you could really ask the question rather than for me to repeat the question. The question is, or maybe our Shaykh, you want to have the questions here as well written, would help me a lot, like the last time in Ramadan, it would be helpful as well. So the brother is asking regarding the wudu. I made wudu and I wanted to change my clothes. I changed my clothes. Do I need to make wudu again? No, you don't have to. No, you don't have to. Even if you made masah on your socks and you took the socks off, you don't have to make wudu again. Taking off the socks which has been wiped over it does not invalidate your wudu. Bye. Tafadal. No microphone? Garrib. Yalla. No, it's not, because of the sisters. We will have, inshallah, maybe invest into a wireless microphone. That would be better. We have? You have technology, mashallah. Khalas. Wireless microphone, that would be better. Tafadhal, Shaykh. Go ahead.
Could you please clarify again the issue of Jama'ah after the main Jama'ah?
Please clarify the issue of Jama'ah after Jama'ah. The masjid which has Imam Ratib. Imam Ratib means an Imam that would come to lead the prayer. And if he's absent, he will leave somebody else to lead the prayer. That's called a masjid. It's called Imam Ratib. We have 3 sayings from 3 school of thoughts, and that is Ahnaf, Shafi'iyya, and Malikiyya. The 3 of them, they don't allow the establishment except for the first and only Jama'ah in each prayer. Imam Shafi'i, he would deem it to be scattering the Jama'ah. He says, if a person entered a masjid which the Jama'ah has been prayed, then let you not initiate a different Jama'ah, for verily that would scatter the words. It will scatter the Muslims. What is the reason for Shafi'i, Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad, Imam Abu Hanifa, save the Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, to say that? This is based upon number of ahadith. One which says from Anas, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, if they enter a masjid which the prayer has been already prayed, the Jama'ah, Sallu furada, they pray on their own. That's number 1. Number 2, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, the most heaviest and difficult prayer upon the hypocrites, the prayer of the Isha and the prayer of the Fajr. And if they know what lies for them in those 2 prayers, they would come to them even crawling. And I'm about to make the prayer to be established. And I will go with some men along with us, wood, collect some wood, and go to the houses who did not witness the Jama'ah and burn these houses with fire. I'm asking, witness the Jama'ah. Which Jama'ah are we talking about? Jama'ah number 1, Jama'ah number 2, Jama'ah number 3. Some of the masajid, they got non-stopping Jama'ah, from the Jama'ah to the Jama'ah. Which Jama'ah? The Prophet of Allah, he said, I'm going to burn the houses of those people who did not come to the Jama'ah. Which Jama'ah? The first Jama'ah, which is the Prophet of Allah commanded for that Jama'ah to be established. Because if there is a Jama'ah after a Jama'ah after a Jama'ah, then every time he would knock on the door of a house, why didn't you come to the Jama'ah? He said, Messenger of Allah, I'm going to come to the 5th Jama'ah after the Jama'ah. And if you go to our masajid in our countries, I'm pretty sure you know that, there's non-stopping Jama'ah from the Dhuhr until the Asr. Even though some people would arrive just about before the Imam to finish his salutation, and you're about to go and join that prayer, somebody will say, no, we're going to make another Jama'ah. Wait, let them salutate. Subhanallah. He will ask you to stop for that Jama'ah to finish, so that he could really what? Do another Jama'ah. Where is the scattering of the Jama'ah? Is that if, for example, you hate the Imam, you don't like him, so you deliberately wait until he finishes and you initiate your own Jama'ah. Or if you want to show how beautiful your recitation is and you want to show your skill, so you deliberately wait till the Jama'ah is gone and you come and lead with a beautiful voice, and the people start coming to your Jama'ah rather than the legitimate Jama'ah, because your voice is beautiful. Then later on will be a coup against that Imam. Look what entails. Lots of things, because they heard your voice better. So you have now supporters. Then you make a coup. That's why the Jama'ah, the second one, has lots of disadvantages. And the Prophet ﷺ, he came one day from the Medina, and the leader was Abdul Rahman ibn Auf. And the Prophet of Allah joined the prayer is finished. He did not initiate another Jama'ah. Imagine he made another Jama'ah, all the companions, even who prayed behind Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, they would pray behind him. Again, he went to his house and he made jama'ah with his wives. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he entered the masjid where the jama'ah had been prayed. He took his students, Rahim al-Nakha'i, Alqama, and then he made jama'ah in his house. Did not make jama'ah in the masjid. Making a jama'ah after the jama'ah only for two reasons. Number one is that the masjid is not hasn't got an imam ratib. It's a masjid on the road for travelers. Like in Saudi Arabia, masjid for travelers. Anybody could really make jama'ah, it's no problem. Or number two, you are a group who are travelers. If you are travelers, you wait until the jama'ah is finished, people left, then you make your own jama'ah because you're travelers. So when another person comes and sees you, he will know that, oh, they're not initiating different jama'ah, these are travelers, they're new faces. That's no problem. And they will go into a corner where there will be no disturbance. We've got only 2 minutes.